Why, hello, this is Rogueblades, and I am coming to you with my first ever SMNC commentary, which is pretty exciting for me. As you know, I've been doing a lot of videos, I've been really active in this beta, and I'm glad to finally be doing commentaries again. It's been too long. But anyway, a lot of my subscribers and a lot of people who I've been playing with have been asking me for a tutorial of sorts, you know, help them figure out the class or maybe the game and its intricacies and help them to become better players. And I'd love to do that, but for some reason I'm just really bad at making tutorials or something like that. So I figured I would take this match as an excuse to, you know, let you guys in on what I'm thinking about as I'm playing, because a lot of the things that I do, it's not that I'm that technical, it's about thinking, it's about, you know, knowing where to be and when to attack and when to do what, and it's hard to teach someone how to think right, if that makes any sense. So in this video, we're going to be talking about the Assassin, which is still my favorite class in SMNC, though I really like Spark a lot. He's not quite as good as Assassin. Assassin just fits the role of Commando perfectly, and it suits my playstyle just fine. So this is going to be an Assassin video, and as you saw from the beginning, I went straight into the jungle because I've felt for a very long time, since really early beta, that Commandos in the jungle are where they belong early game. And the reason I think this is because they're very frail through the entire game, but it's especially noticeable from level 1 to level 3 or 4, and unless you can establish a level advantage early, you're going to have a really tough time in the game. So that's why you want to go in the jungle, because you can get up there, kill the initial gremlins, and kill any straggling you know, bots in the lane to get experience, and then you go down to gank like I just did, and it can give you a really solid level advantage if you're up against a team who's not expecting it. Another pretty obvious reason why the Assassin or Commandos in general should go up into the jungle early on is because simply they can get up there without having to spend any money. The only classes who aren't Commandos that can do that are Carl and the Assault through skills, although I've noticed recently that some of the Enforcers can get up there using like the dispensers plus their jetpacks. I don't know how to do that exactly, but I know it's possible. Though it's rather foolish for the Enforcers and even Carl and Assault in most cases to go up into the jungle, because they are far better in the lane, and that's probably where they should be. They can push much better than the Assassin or any other Commando, really. And I think that really the only reason a non-Commando would go up there is if they know that there's a Commando like me who likes to go in the jungle and utilize it, and if they can cut it off to a player like me, then that seriously hampers my early game, which can affect the rest of my game too. But a brief note about early game jungling, since we're already talking about it. There should only ever be one person who goes in the jungle to jungle. You can have a babysitter, that's a term that League of Legends players should be familiar with. The babysitter, I know that I do this with some assaults a lot, where he'll come up and babysit me while I get that first gremlin kill and make sure that no one snipes it or tries to kill me while I'm trying to kill the bots, which is really effective. But when you're having multiple people from the same team going up there trying to kill the gremlins, you're really just hurting yourselves, because that's one less person in the lane, one less person getting lane experience, and then you're fighting over jungle bots, which is something that you're already having to do with the enemy jungler anyway. So if everything's been going well for you in the jungle, you've probably picked up a couple of gremlin kills, you've been shooting bots in the lane, you may have even gotten a kill, but you probably have a level advantage at this point. And what do you want to do with that? Well, you want to abuse that, and you want to go down and see if you can set up kills and help push the lanes even further. And a lot of people think that Commandos are overpowered in pub play because the good ones will stay in the jungle and they'll come down when they know they can get a kill, and it's really hard to see that coming if you're not paying attention. And so there's that feeling of I'm always overextended because there's a Commando in the jungle who could just come down at any time and kill me. So as a Commando in the jungle, you always want to be looking out for low HP opponents, because it's your job to finish them off. If they're trying to run back to base or run for the Regenadol containers, you want to stop them and kill them, you know, before they can recover their health. And if you're going up against a good Commando, you always want to be mindful of the fact that that Commando could be anywhere, and you should try to run on full health or near full health as much as you can, because you never know when an Assassin will just pop around the corner with her cloak on, walk right past your bots and turrets, and just kill you. And for those of you who don't know, one major change the Assassin got between MNC and SMNC was the fact that her cloak now does not make her fully invisible to players. but it does stay on all the time and grants her invisibility to bots and turrets, which is really why she's such a good ganker, because as you're about to see, I can go and do crazy stuff like this and not get punished unless I get grabbed out of the cloak. And what you just saw right there is a perfect example of how assassins are supposed to get their kills, using the cloak, coming out of the jungle, and spying on low HP opponents and picking them off before they can get back to base. Very important. And after that kill, the Annihilator did just pop. We're right about the 5-minute point, and that is when the Annihilator comes up. It comes up at 5 minutes in. Your whole team should be up there. I mean, unless you're worried about a lane getting pushed, then maybe 1 or 2 people should stay behind. But you want to have as much firepower as you can at the Annihilator, because it is so important in this game. I cannot stress how important Annihilator fights are. And a lot of the veteran players get really mad at the new players who completely ignore the Annihilator, because it does win games. It's that important. So I can't stress it enough. I don't know how many times I have to say it, but you guys, it is so important. But now that the first Annihilator has gone off, we're kind of moving into the mid-game. You're going to see a little bit different playstyle. The Assassin will end up getting kills differently in the mid-game. At least that's how I play. In the early game, the Assassin is all about coming out from the jungle and getting really good ganks on low HP opponents who are trying to flee back to their base, or maybe just trying to cover their own ass. But after the first Annihilator, one team is probably going to be more pushed into their base. You can't rely on the jungle to just jump down on people, and there's not going to be as many lone wolves, because most people like to group up. And if you don't group up, things like this happen, where you should never run away from your team when you're at 20% health, unless you're running back to base. Now that doesn't mean the Assassin can't get kills like she did in the early game. It's just a lot harder because of the circumstances. But so how does she get kills? Well, she assists in team fights the best she can. You should try to keep with a push as much as you feel comfortable doing, but the main bulk of her kills in the mid game are from flanking and, you know, being that one person who no one saw coming while they were focused on another team fight. A lot of people would call this a cheap tactic, but I mean, if you're playing commandos, then you don't play fair anyway, and that's how you're supposed to do it. This game is not about being polite. It's about winning and losing, and you do what it takes to get kills. You do what it takes to win the game. I know I've said this before in other videos, but it's important enough that I guess it's worth repeating. You should never ever nerf yourself by telling yourself you're not going to do something because it's cheap or you don't like doing that, even if it's effective. I mean, other players might not like it, but you should never ever prevent yourself from playing to your maximum potential, basically. Because that mentality is what separates the competitors from the scrubs. I mean, it separates the noobs from the pros in anything, really. So it's important. But I guess another thing that really separates the noobs from the pros, and something I can talk about for a long time because I just like learning about this sort of stuff. When people ask me, you know, what do I do to get better? How can I improve? One thing I can't really tell them because it would take too long to explain in the little chat dialogue. There's these game ideas called broadcasting and reading. And broadcasting simply is when you do something that another person reads. It's your tell. You have a pattern of responses to a certain circumstance, and if you're not the best player, you probably have a limited amount of responses, and so a better player will be able to read you and know what you're going to do and have a better response to your response, if that makes sense. So, perfect example, if I grab someone, I'm going to expect that they're going to be low on health, they're going to be jarred because I've just grabbed them and done a lot of damage, they're going to be confused for that too. They're probably going to make for the nearest Regenitol or maybe try to run back to base, but the response will be, go away. They're going to try to leave. At least that's what a normal response should be. It's not going to be, oh, I'm fine, I've only got 20% health, but I'm going to kick this assassin's ass, I can still do it. So the point of this is, when you're playing, you shouldn't just be thinking about what you're doing, you should be thinking about what the opponent is going to do because of what you've done. Because by being that step or two ahead of the enemy team, you know, you're at a massive advantage because, you know, you do something and you already know what they're going to do, or you have a pretty good idea, and so you already know what you're going to do for that response. And it might sound like a lot of theory crafting and a lot of ridiculous stuff, but trust me, it's so true across the board. multiple games where this same thing. Geez, I think the biggest examples of all of this came from games like Street Fighter. Fighting games, reading and broadcasting are so crucial because you get punished for doing stupid things over and over and over, and it'll definitely lose you games. It's just so important, and it holds true to this too. It's just slightly different. And it's also good because if you're forced to be that mentally engaged in something, if you're thinking that hard about it, of course you're gonna do better. And if you're thinking, moves ahead, if you're thinking about what the other person is thinking about, your performance is definitely going to increase. You're taking mental inventory, and it's helping you to become a better player, and you're definitely gonna see results. It's great. But I guess the moral of the whole story is, try not to broadcast, try to be unpredictable, and that's going to help you survive, that's going to help you escape situations that a lesser player would have definitely died under, and try to read, try to know what the opponent is going to do, and have a response planned. Like I said, if they're low, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out they're probably going to try to find a way to improve their health. They're going to go for Regenadol, maybe go back to base, look for churros, something like that. If they're in a team fight and they think that they have the advantage numbers-wise, and you're there lurking, you probably know what they're gonna do. If they get someone on your team low on health, they're probably gonna try to run. They're gonna try to get that kill because they've got the numbers advantage as far as they're concerned, and they might be at half health. They might actually not be so well off themselves, but they feel safe because they think that the only adversary is what's right in front of them. But that's a basic look into reading and broadcasting. Like I said, I could talk for hours about this sort of stuff because I love games theory. I've always thought it was really interesting, but that's a subject for another day, I guess. So now I think it'd be good to talk about two things that are really good for assassins that a lot of people either overlook or they don't think about all that much. The first is scramblers. It sounds weird, but assassins and commandos in general really benefit from scramblers being around, and actually they get really hurt by scramblers on the other team as well. The cool thing about scramblers in this game, for those of you who don't know, instead of how they worked in regular MNC, which was they just drained your skills and that was it, in this game they jam everything, and it completely locks you down. You can't use any of your skills, you can't lunge, and you can't use you can't grapple either. So with that in mind, if you've got friendly scramblers and you're trying to kill someone, they've got no options. You have severely limited their responses, and you don't even have to worry about bunny hopping to avoid counter grabs because they can't grab because they're being skill jammed. But the same goes for you as a commando. If you get hit by scramblers, you need to leave because they will ruin your day. They absolutely destroy commandos. I mean, they're bad for everybody, but they are extra bad for commandos. The other thing I feel like commando players need to learn more about is unorthodox uses of juicing. Like in regular Monday Night Combat, it fully healed you, it made you this indestructible god for a few seconds, and you did 1,000,000 damage, and you rolled anybody who dared get in your way. I mean, no matter what class, really, you just wrecked people. In this game, it's a little different. It adds nothing to your armor. It doesn't make you more durable. It gives you health regen, like you just bought a Regenadol, but if you're on fire or taking damage, it stops that regeneration, so that's something you want to consider. But what do I mean by unorthodox uses of juice? Well, normally a lot of people think, oh, I'm going to use this juice and get this guaranteed kill, or kill a turret, or juice the money ball. That's pretty par for the course. No matter who you play, that's probably what you're going to be using your juice on. But a lot of times, juice can be used far more effectively in certain situations. For instance, you're low on health. There's no shame in popping your juice to regenerate your health. As easy it is to get juice now, and as little benefit as it really gives you, regenerating your health if you're critical is fine in my book. But the real thing more people should learn about how to use, and it's really good for commandos, and I'll explain why, is using a juice to break a grapple. And if you didn't know that, they've added that in Super Monday Night Combat. You can now juice to break an opponent's grab. It will put them on their face for a few seconds like they tripped, and it sets up a really good scenario. But having a full juice bar also allows you as a commando to play much more recklessly than you would otherwise, because you don't have to worry about being grabbed and locked down, because the second you get grabbed, you just pop your juice and you are out of there. So it allows you to do things that you probably would never even consider doing otherwise, like jumping into a team fight like 1 versus 4 to try to get a kill, because you know you got that juice, so if they try to grab you and lock you down, you can break away. But the other thing that's really good about it is it turns a fight that you're probably going to lose into a fight that you are almost certainly going to win, because someone grabs you and you're at average health. They think, oh well, I've got this commando and I grabbed her, it's going to do a lot of damage because she's frail as hell. But if you break that grapple, you've set up this scenario where they're on their face and they can't move and they can't act for a few seconds, and you are there for a few seconds with juice, doing juice damage, because if you use juice to break a grapple, you only get, I think, 3 seconds of juice instead of the full duration. But for that amount of time that you have them prone, you can do juiced sword damage to them, which, as anybody should know, that's a ludicrous amount of damage. I mean, it just does a lot of damage. And for the naysayers who think it's a bad strategy, it's a waste of juice, consider that even though the assassin is losing a bunch of time on the juice, you've set up a controlled environment where you can do guaranteed damage, because when you juice in a normal circumstance, there's no guarantee that you're going to land any of those swings. And I know it's ridiculous to think, oh well, I just had 10 seconds where I didn't hit a single thing with this juice, but I mean, it does happen, and you have to account for weird stuff like that. But when you use it to break a grab, they can't act, and they are right in front of you. You've set up this ultra controlled environment where you are doing guaranteed damage essentially. And the cool thing for the commandos is you'll do your juice damage, and the second it's done, or the second they're getting up from the prone state, you can grab them, and you are adding even more control to the equation. And I don't recall if there's an exceptionally good example of me doing that in this video, but you better believe in almost every game I played, most of the juices I have get used to break grabs. I mean, I think I legitimately pop a juice to do extra damage for the whole duration of juice, like 1 in 10 now. I'm either using juice to kill a turret or I'm breaking grabs with it, and it's that great. I think that highly of it. It also makes you really dangerous when it comes time for an Annihilator fight, and the reason for that is when you're trying to get the Annihilator, you are so prone. It's as helpless as I feel in the game, no matter what. But if I have a juice, I can still actually contribute to an Annihilator fight while I'm pressing the button, because say something goes wrong, my team is not able to defend me properly, and I get grabbed out of it. Well, the person who grabs me is thinking, oh, well, I've stopped the Annihilator, and I might even kill this guy because I've grabbed him and my team's here. But he doesn't know that I'm going to counter juice him, and to break that grapple and do, 1,500 damage and then be gone is a really big deal in a game like this. But I think I've rambled enough about those two things, scramblers and juicing, enough. Let's get back to this video. I've noticed at this point that one of our lanes is getting pushed pretty hard, which is weird because for the past few minutes, as you've seen, I was in their base. We were really putting on pressure pretty hard, and but they set up a nice counter push, and it went unnoticed. And you'll see as I round this corner, the support's there. He's healing. He's got his fire base set up. And right now it's just him, but it turns into a really strong team push for them. And the problem is my team has been in the jungle a lot this game, and when you're in the jungle, you're not doing anything. You're not contributing to the team in any way. It is really just to go up there to get some experience from the jungle bots. I mean, you're obviously not pushing a lane, and so things like this happen where you've got 2 or 3 teammates in the jungle, and they've got 3 or 4 people in one lane making a ridiculously strong push, and you've got no one there to defend it. And I'm an assassin, and I'm trying my best, but let's get real, I'm not going to really hold this push alone. And I've noticed that the support dropped his fire base, and I'm going to be quick to handle that because I'm trying to avoid a containment scenario as much as possible. And the turrets, the fire bases, and the kitties, they are really strong in this game, and if you allow them to set up shop, you might have a really tough time breaking that contain. So I don't want that to happen. He's already, I mean, he's probably overclocked and gotten a new one out, but I'm trying to stop it, and it's not really working at this point. They have a Fuji. That turret is on fire, which means it's low health at best. And right now they're pushing that one lane very hard, and I actually use my smoke bomb and juice to kill the bots to try to keep the turret up and put as much pressure on the lane to get them to move as I can, because I'm trying to do what an assassin can do to counter push, which is, you know, get in their face and try to be this nuisance that they can't handle. And I see that the support is here pretty hell-bent on keeping our bots at bay. And I go down there, try to just harass him a little. I honestly was not expecting to pick up that kill. I thought for sure his teammates would come and help, but for some reason they just weren't going to help him. So I thought, oh, well, alright then, I guess I'll just kill the support. And that support dying really marked the beginning of our counter push, because they lost their containment. They lost the ability to hold us down with that fire base there. And immediately after that, their Cheston died, and so they're down 2, so it's a 3-5 advantage for us right now. And now that we finally have some breathing room, I take that to get back into the jungle and try to, you know, get where I'm comfortable, which is above everyone else. I need to see where everyone is, and I also notice at this point that the Annihilator is about up, and I realize that this one we have to win. If we lose this one, we're probably going to lose the game. But if we're able to get it, we might be able to make a counter push strong enough to win. And the Spark just barely gets it before the airstrike knocks him off, and that is great. It's severely damaged all their teammates, and all their bots are gone. And as you notice, we just aced their team, so now they've got no strength, and we have free reign to do whatever we want to their rocket turrets and hopefully get their money ball down. And since the only turrets that stand in our way are the rocket turrets, I decide to pick the lane that has bots closer to the turrets and focus that one. And you'll see that I moved in between the 2 turrets before I used my smoke bomb. That was so I could deactivate both of them, because this is a little tip for assassins who want to learn a little bit of the intricacies of assassin. If you smoke bomb on one turret, if you're hugging one, the other one won't be affected, so when you decloak, that one will still be firing on you. But if you move into the middle before you hit the smoke bomb, they'll both be disabled, and you can save your cloak cooldown for when your smoke bomb effects wear off. And so at this point, I get into a really bot-killing mood. I realize I have to kill the bots. And the enemy team is not something I can just push over. They got our ball almost down. They managed to drop one of our rocket turrets, and so I realized that if we don't end this sooner than later, I could have another situation where I'm desperately defending my money ball, and I don't want that. I want to keep pressure up, so I'm going to try to keep both lanes down best I can. But as you'll notice from the HUD, while I'm up here in the jungle trying to dispatch some of these bots and move some of the players along, they actually start to make a counter push against us again. And if I remember right, there is a situation where it's really close and they about have our ball down. And that could be due to me not going into the lane and keeping the bots down, but I'm pretty hell-bent on, getting both of these turrets down so that when the opportunity arises, I'll be able to push bots in from whichever angle is best. And I try to kill this gunner with my remaining juice, but his damage output is just a little bit too high, and he gets me critical, and I have to get out of there. And another little tip, I guess, for people wanting to learn how to not die as much, altering your X-axis is better for escaping than altering your Y. And by that I mean, if you're on the same horizontal plane, you're an easier target, but if you can move yourself up and down to different levels of the arena, you become a much harder target to hit. For some reason, people just have a harder time aiming up and down, I guess. So that's always something you want to consider. And once again, I get hit, and I'm very critical. And this is a part where reading versus broadcasting comes in. I do something that most players would think is really odd, which is I run for their Regenadol and into their Scramblers, because I thought for certain no one would expect that, and I ended up being right, and I got out of there alive. But a typical response most people would think would just be, I have to get out, I have to get as close to my base as possible, but that's what everyone's expecting, and sometimes you gotta do something crazy so that no one expects it, And as you can see, during all of that, they managed to get our ball down, which, even though I was in their base distracting as many as 3 players at a time, It doesn't matter if there's one guy pushing bots in one lane. That's all that matters. And if your team isn't going to keep those bots down, then you have to be the one to do it. And so I go all the way back and dispatch some bots. And at this point, I buy juice because I see jackbots, and this is another great way to use juice. Since jackbots ignore other bots and they mulch the ones that they hit anyway, you have to get them down as fast as possible, and that was my logic here. But I get grabbed, and I get knocked off, but I managed to use my mobility tool to get back, but I did not see that airstrike, and if you saw from my heads-up display, I was frantically hitting the leap button, trying to leap again, even though obviously that's not going to work. But I guess in this death period we can talk about that. See, I got really bad tunnel vision there, and I really wanted to kill that Carl who tried to throw me off the level, because how dare he, right? And I didn't notice, I wasn't paying attention. Situational awareness bro should have told me that there was an airstrike there, but he kind of let me down on that one, and I paid the price. So that's a great example. Even good players will make really newbie mistakes like that, and you definitely could die for it. And you know, if I'd been paying just a little bit more attention, I could have easily lunged out of the way. But I get really nervous at this point because since I died, I felt like I was all of our team's steam, you know? And since I died, I wasn't there to defend. And now that I am defending again, I make a really good clutch decision to pop my smoke bomb to keep that Fuji bot off our money ball. And I noticed through some amazing luck that our team has managed to get their money ball down, so I buy juice and get to this really, it's a pretty cheesy spot, not gonna lie, but I love to juice the money ball from here with any class who can do it from this range. And if you were paying attention a few seconds ago, you would have noticed that the Annihilator was about up, so I decide, just to be safe, that I would go and claim that for our team, keeping my cloak on because I noticed there's a bouncer there and I don't want him interrupting me. So I get that, and now I'm pretty much certain that we're not going to lose because they have no bots, they can't get close to our money ball, and their money ball is down, although I think it does go back up for a second. Yeah, there it does. But we've got jackbots on the way and a bunch of other bots, and so I just get right back up to this spot and start raining down damage on the money ball again. I just love this for Assassin. I do this a lot with Spark too. But really effective because you can see everything and you can respond to people way better from this high up. You'll notice, see, I decide this gunner was low enough that I could go in for a dive and get that kill. And so now that their money ball is vulnerable and we have jackbots in their base, I try to do the best thing an assassin can do, which is just be as annoying as possible. Either get them to fire at me or punish them for not firing at me by hitting their money ball. And this Carl thinks he can get tricky on me and get away, but he's mistaken. He'll die. And as I'm going back into the money ball, I take some serious damage, and I decide last minute I'm going to, you'll see I end up getting exactly $2,001. And I'm critical, so I can either choose to buy a Regenadol or buy juice. And I think about going for the Regenadol, but then I realize I can just use the juice and get back to full health through its regeneration and do juice damage to the money ball. So that's what I end up deciding on. But anyway, so that's going to be the game. I hope I maybe answered some of your questions. If you were confused about my playstyle, I hope this cleared things up. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed, and until next time, this has been Rogueblades. Stay sneaky, everybody.